Good morning and welcome to NAA's daily micro webinar series. My name is Stephanie Anderson and I am the Industry Operations Manager for the National Apartment Association. In a continued effort to provide our membership with timely and relevant information and operational guidance amid COVID-19, we are producing daily updates in the form of micro webinars. Each day we will focus on a different topic relevant to the apartment industry. At this time, I would like to direct your attention to the screen. Please take a moment to review our disclaimer. Today, I am honored to introduce Nicole Apano, Director of Public Policy at the National Apartment Association. Nicole will be sharing guidance on business operation restrictions due to shelter-in-place orders. Nicole, welcome.
Thanks, Stephanie. Good morning, everyone. So let's get right to it. I know everyone's really busy right now. So you may have seen yesterday, Governor Jared Polis in Colorado issued a shelter-in-place order that actually took effect this morning at 6 a.m. and it will last through April 11th or unless it's rescinded or modified. I wanted to point this out to you because it's a really good example of an executive order that protects the industry's right to operate. It includes both property management and maintenance, and also protects housing construction as essential businesses. And so I'll go into what that means. So what does this mean? Well, what it really means is that these are also known as stay-at-home orders, and they were intended for a natural disaster, but because short of any other comparison, they're being used right now in the interest of public health. And I want to emphasize that they greatly depend on the state or local executive order and the specific language that's in place locally. Mainly, this really depends on, it does two things. They severely restrict everyday movement of individuals in the community. They allow you just to go outside for some fresh air, to get groceries, and to seek emergency medical attention. And for businesses, it means significant limits on how you operate, or in some cases, required closures. And there are some limited exceptions. As I said, there are typically in these orders, it says if your industry or the type of work you do is an essential business that can maintain operations, even if it's not business as usual, you at least won't have to worry about, I know we're hearing that some law enforcement are enforcing these orders, whether or not you're able to go to work every day. Okay, so how do I know if my job is considered essential? So again, taking from other standards or examples and not having any comparison for this unprecedented emergency, there is a presidential directive, Obama-era directive, that says there are 16 essential critical infrastructure workforce sectors that must remain open to maintain strength and stability in a physical or even cyber threat or emergency. That's why this guidance on COVID-19 is actually coming from the Department of Homeland Security, their Cyber and Infrastructure Division. So as I had mentioned, CISA, as they're called, or CISA, they developed guidance to advise state and local governments about what essential workforces must be able to remain in business and in effect, even if there is an emergency or any sort of shelter-in-place or stay-in-place order happening. Unfortunately, ultimately, it's up to the state and local executives and how the orders are written. So again, for some, it might be easier than others because they refer directly to CISA, which if you see the arrow, commercial facilities I highlighted there, real estate does fall under that sector. So when I checked last night, there are, according to the New York Times, 196 million people that are being urged to stay at home. There are 21 states and dozens, like 37 counties, 16 city stay-at-home orders currently in place right now. And to help advise you in how to navigate this, especially for regional or national companies, NAA does maintain a list. And I'm happy to share that information with you or give that information to Stephanie to make sure you have it. You should already have access to that on the COVID-19 resource page on NAA's website. It's updated daily. So on executive orders, I know I'd mentioned they mainly have specific restrictions, but there are sometimes exceptions for essential businesses. And even if you're not listed as an essential business, that's not the end of the story. State and local public officials are always updating those lists. And even then, they do allow businesses to maintain minimum basic operations or to take those steps to ensure that's still allowable, even if you're not an essential business. So just like I said on the map, this kind of shows you what I already laid out, and here's where you find that list. Wanted to give you a couple examples so you have just a better sense of what to look for. And the easiest way to find out what applies to you or how the state or local order applies to you, I would just suggest Googling the mayor or the governor's website. It's usually in the press releases, or they usually list out the executive orders that have just passed, and look for the section that talks about essential businesses, and you'll see some familiar information. Like what I mentioned in CISA, it might have a direct site to CISA that says these critical infrastructure sectors need to remain open. Or, for example, in Arizona and Illinois, they specifically exempt building management and maintenance. California, like I said, they reference CISA in their statewide order and also protect housing construction as well. Kentucky has probably what we've seen as the most extensive list. And what they say is to ensure Kentuckians remain healthy at home, they protect businesses that provide construction or maintenance of residential structures. And that includes everything from plumbers, electricians, exterminators, all the suppliers and vendors you normally use, janitorial services, and all the like, down to landscaping and the things that you would be doing in the leasing office as well. Governor Cuomo in New York has an interesting take on this particular executive action. He has mandated that all employers reduce their in-person workforces at any work location to 75%. So I think I had mentioned this previously. A lot of these orders either encourage or mandate working from home and then limit to just essential businesses. So he's actually requiring that all businesses pare down to 75% of in-person workforce unless you are an essential business. And luckily in New York, that does specifically include residential real estate operations. So you probably saw last Friday, there was an all-member email that went out that Bob sent out just to let people know about these shelter in place or stay at home orders and provide some of the guidance and some of the talking points that I'm trying to emphasize here. We have been encouraging our state and local association partners just to ensure that property management and construction are explicitly exempt in these orders, just to ensure the viability of our industry. And just remember, state and local officials have the discretion to make changes as needed. So even if this order goes into place and you don't see a specific citation to you, you can go back to, you or the association can go back to their contacts at the state or local level to make sure that we're protected. So I wanted to go over a couple general best practices and then some that apply directly to the industry. So in general, if a stay-at-home order or shelter-in-place order goes into effect, you want to work with your company to develop a description of the activities that you undertake site by site so that you have a really good sense of what everyone does, and you can easily categorize the types or functions and duties they're doing. And consider those in light of whatever the state or local order that's in place. As I mentioned, tailor to the specifics of the state or local mandate. think about what functions can be performed remotely, thinking through that 75% number in Governor Cuomo's order, though it greatly depends on the city, county, or state level mandate that's currently in place, and really consider what business activities cannot be performed remotely, that you really need to have someone on staff to be able to maintain, as Kentucky said, that healthy home. And the last thing I'll say is whatever that description is, make sure that every employee has a copy, not just that it's communicated to them, but like I said, law enforcement is in some areas enforcing these orders. So just so they understand their responsibilities and why they're essential. So here are some more specific best practices that I would recommend, regardless of whether you have a shelter in place order or not. You're probably going to, in this current environment, have to pare down the types of in-person activities that are happening on site at the community. You want to limit your on-site employees and think through any limitations on group gatherings that are coming out of the CDC or elsewhere, and physical space restrictions, that social distancing line of thinking of maintaining a certain amount of space. So if you have a small leasing office, you don't want everyone sitting at desks right next to each other. And where possible, try and limit in-person interactions, not just among staff, but also between staff and residents as well. You should consider whether residents have a place through an online portal that they can pay rent or put in service requests, but also offer a secure Dropbox as required by law. In some places, you cannot require all residents to pay online, or they may ask for a reasonable accommodation for some reason that they need to pay in person. So on urgent resident requests, this is probably at the heart of what you can say is an essential business or an essential part of your business that needs to continue to maintain operations. You need to prioritize any maintenance requests that come in, and be able to fill any habitability related issues or any concerns of that like, and hold off on any cosmetic repairs or any other non-urgent requests that could be deprioritized. Also keep in mind, talk to your suppliers and understand who's available for any emergency maintenance needs. And as you would do for everything, stay in communication with your residents and your staff via all the regular communication channels, and make sure that you've identified an emergency contact, especially for after-hour problems. And also have an alternate plan. As I'm sure you all know, those plans always never fall into place. Couple other things. So at move out, if a resident still maintains they want to move out in this current environment, continue your move out inspections and security deposit procedures as required by law, because that could really cause a hang up or a problem later if for some reason there's a legal dispute. And as always, as you keep hearing, adhere to social distancing protocols. If for some reason they still do want to move forward with that move out, or if they do not, make sure you get that in writing just to protect yourself. As always, document everything and keep everything in the file. So as far as prospects go, as far as prospective residents, I would suggest, do you have an option for virtual tours just so you can avoid any unnecessary in-person contact? If you do in-person showings, consider letting them go into the unit without you, and make sure in between showings that you're cleaning high touch surfaces. Also, we're hearing that in the current environment, a lot of courts, as you know, are closed. So how can you adequately or properly do screening, especially in regards to criminal screening or checking eviction court records? So if you're already in this practice because of a state or local screening law, that if for whatever reason you may be required to offer a conditional offer for certain applicants, that may be something you want to look into. But again, just remember your fair housing obligations. Whatever practice you do change, you have to apply that to everyone. So that is all I have for today. I think I'll turn it back over to Stephanie. As I've said previously, please send any questions. We're working really hard to get those questions answered. And if you go to the homepage on NAA's website, you'll find a wealth of resources that we continue to update on COVID-19 on coronavirus. Stephanie?
Thank you so much, Nicole, for your expert advice on business operations amid COVID-19. For more information on this topic and others related to this pandemic, we do invite our members to view our coronavirus resources and guidance page where new information is added daily. We look forward to having you back tomorrow for another great webinar. Have a wonderful day.